You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers continue riding an absolute heater on the recruiting trail. So after picking up 3 commitments over the weekend, including a couple of a couple of offensive linemen, LSU on Tuesday picked up a commitment from 4-star 2025 tight end JD LeFleur. The last name should sound familiar. This is David LeFleur's kid. David LeFleur, for those who don't know, was a tight end at LSU in the 1990s. He was an All-American in 1996. He was a first-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys in the 1997 draft. Unfortunately, his NFL career was cut short because of a neck injury that persisted and ultimately cost him his professional career. But make no mistake, until Thaddeus Moss came along in 2019, there were really 2 pass-catching tight ends in all of LSU history that were of note. And it was David LeFleur and Robert Royal. Like, that was really it. That was the list until Moss came along and broke all of their single-season receiving records. And LeFleur was obviously more of a traditional double-edged sword. He was an inline blocker who could also catch the football. He was, I hesitate to call him Kelsey or Kittle, one of those guys, but he was more of that Gronk. He was more of that mold than he was, say, Jimmy Graham, who was more the pass-catching tight end, what we see today, O.J. Howard, Jawan Johnson. So J.D. LeFleur, let's run through it here. J.D. LeFleur, class of 2025. He is at Sulphur High, obviously in Louisiana. And when you look at the recruiting profile for J.D. LeFleur, he's a 4-star, and he's one of the top tight ends in the country for the 2025 class. He's already 6'6", 220. So physically, again, he's a rising junior. He's about to start his junior year of high school. He's already 6'6", 220. He is according to On3, he's a 4-star. 247 has him as a 3-star. But either way, he's a consensus top 10 player in Louisiana for the class of 2025 and had offers. I tell you all the time, I look at who was interested in you. And you look at this offer list, LSU, Florida, Miami, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Baylor, and he had others. So you're talking about a guy that was recruited by Mike Denbrock, had tons of big-time offers, is a legacy. There's a lot of reasons to be in love with this decision and with this commitment. So, couple things. Number one is nostalgia. When David LeFleur was playing for LSU, that was just sort of a formative time for me, like as a fan, that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. In the 90s, I was in high school, and those LSU teams I loved, man. When David LeFleur was there, he helped LSU snap that string of 6 straight losing seasons under Mike Archer and then Curly Hallman. DiNardo came in and won the Independence Bowl in 95. And, of course, in 96, they won 10 games, beat Clemson in the Peach Bowl, and David LeFleur was a huge part of that. Was an All-American in 1996, and then was a first-round draft pick in 1997. So, LeFleur and Nicky Savoie were both tight ends together in 1996, and both got drafted in 1997. LeFleur to the Cowboys and Savoie to the New Orleans Saints. So you look at the time that David LeFleur was at LSU, and then just the fact that he's a legacy and it's really cool, in the same way that it was really cool when Josh Maravich and Sharif O'Neal played at LSU or when Walker Howard signed with the football program. It's always nostalgic and pretty cool when you have legacy players come through LSU. And look, or any school really. Look, David LeFleur was a stud, man. There's no two ways around it. That dude was a first-round draft pick. He's a throwback tight end, and he was awesome to watch, and got so many great memories of watching David LeFleur play at LSU, and now his son is committed. The other reasons that the J.D. LeFleur news is really big, number one, of course, is it's another top player in Louisiana. and I know I hammer this home every time that LSU ends up getting a commitment from a Louisiana kid, but it just further illustrates why Brian Kelly is here. When you can recruit the best players in Louisiana, and by extension, you are recruiting the best players in the country, it's just easier. It's why LSU and Brian Kelly will always be relevant. It's why they'll always have a pipeline of talent. And when LSU isn't winning, it's never going to be for lack of talent. It's going to be because organizationally the team's a mess. You made a bad coaching hire. You made a bad coordinator hire. I think back, of course, we could look at 2020 and 2021 with Ed, but look at 2008 with Les Miles. You come off a national championship. You lose Bo Pelini to Nebraska. They promoted defensively from within with Bradley Dale Pivito and Doug Mallory, and it was a total disaster. The defense fell apart. You had a young quarterback who threw a lot of interceptions, and you had a 5-loss season. And what did you do? Well, you went and got a proven defensive coordinator in John Chavis. Like, if it ever doesn't work at LSU, it's never going to be because of just lack of talent. So, someone asked me earlier today, can Nebraska ever get back to the level that they were in the 90s? And the answer is no, they can't. Cannot. Binary. They cannot. You want to know why? Here's Nebraska. Nebraska for the class of 2023. The state of Nebraska. Best player in the state of Nebraska is a tight end named Carter Nelson. He's the 40th best player in the country. That's pretty good. The number 2 player in the state of Nebraska is Daniel Kalen. He's a quarterback. He's number 233 nationally. The 3rd best player in the state of Nebraska is Davon Hall. He is not ranked nationally. There are only 2 players in that entire state that are ranked nationally. Louisiana, for the class of 2024, has Dominic McKinley, Deshaun McBride, Kylan Billiot, Tradez Green, Tylen Singleton, Jawan Johnson, Wardell Mack, Kalaj Cobbins, 8 players, all ranked within the top 235 nationally. 8. Nebraska's got 2. That's why Nebraska will never win again. Lawrence Phillips was from Arkansas. Tommy Frazier was from Florida. Kids from Florida aren't going to Nebraska to play quarterback ever again. It's not happening. So, and you're certainly not going to be able to roster 185. You'll always be able to do it at LSU. So the nostalgia, obviously keeping another talented blue chip player from the state of Louisiana home in 2025 is so big. And then if you look, one more thing, which I know we've talked about plenty, it's Brian Kelly and his tight ends. On Monday, we were talking about the offensive line commits that LSU got. And I told you there's 2 positions that Brian Kelly has pumped talent into the NFL at a greater level than any other. It's offensive line and tight end. And the same things I was telling you about the offensive line, I can tell you about tight end. When Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame, he had 9 tight ends drafted. 9. LSU, since 1997, when David LaFleur was drafted in round 1, after David LaFleur and Nicky Savoie were both drafted in 1997, LSU has had a total of 4 tight ends drafted in 25 years. Robert Royal, Keith Zinger, Foster Moreau, and Stephon Sullivan. Yes, he was drafted as a tight end. And that's a big asterisk because he was a receiver. Brian Kelly knows what he's looking for in tight ends. He knows how to recruit, develop them, and get them to the NFL draft. And when you look at what that tight end room is going to look like in 2023 and beyond, you can see what's coming. Mason Taylor as a sophomore, plus the 3 freshmen you just signed. Mac Markway, Kamarian Pimpton, and Jackson McGowan. In 2024, Mason Taylor will be a junior. You'll have the three players I just mentioned as sophomores, and then you'll have Trey Green, one of the top players in the state of Louisiana, top tight end in the state of Louisiana in 2024. And then in 2025, if Mason Taylor comes back for senior year, you'll have him, Markway, Pimpton, McGowan, provided no one transfers. Trey Green is a sophomore, and then you add LaFleur. You can see very clearly what Brian Kelly is building at that position in this program. And how can you help but be excited? You know Louisiana is going to pump receivers and running backs into this program. Brian Kelly is already doing a great job recruiting the quarterback position. And he loves him some tight ends. And it shows, and they are coming on Moss. And JD LeFleur is the next. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.